The stagecoach wheels hit another deep hole in the dirt road. Eleanor Hartwell grabbed the side of her seat to keep from falling. Dust flew everywhere, covering her dark blue dress and getting into her mouth. She had been traveling for 8 long days from Boston to this place called Copper Creek, Montana. Her whole body hurt from sitting on the hard wooden bench. Eleanor looked out the small window at the land around her. It was so different from Boston. Here the land went on forever with no end in sight. Big mountains stood far away like sleeping giants. The grass was brown and yellow, not green like back home. She had never seen so much empty space in her life. Indeed, her hand. She held a letter that was worn soft from reading it so many times. The ink was fading, but she knew every word by heart. Samuel Garrett had written to her 3 months ago. He said he needed a wife and had heard she was looking for a husband. He promised her a good home, safety, and a chance for a better life. Eleanor thought about her life in Boston. After her father died, she had to work in a cloth factory. The work was hard, and the pay was small. She lived in a tiny room with 2 other women. There was never enough food or coal for heat in winter. When Samuel's letter came, it seemed like an answer to her prayers. She touched the small bag beside her. It held everything she owned in the world. 2 dresses, some underclothes, her mother's Bible, and her grandfather's old horse training rope. The rope was the only thing left from her childhood in Kentucky. She kept it to remember the happy times on her grandfather's horse farm. The stagecoach. Driver called out, "Copper Creek coming up, miss." Eleanor's heart started beating fast. In a few minutes, she would meet the man she was going to marry. She had no picture of Samuel, only his letters. He said he was 35 years old and owned a big ranch. He promised to be kind to her. She hoped he was telling the truth. The stagecoach stopped in front of a small wooden building. A sign said, "Copper Creek General Store." Eleanor saw maybe 10 buildings on both sides of a dirt street. This was the whole town. It was much smaller than she had thought it would be. The driver climbed down and opened the door for her. "Here you are, miss. End of the line." Eleanor stepped down carefully. Her legs felt shaky after the long ride. She looked around at the few people on the street. An old man sat on a chair outside the store. 2 women in long dresses walked by and stared at her. She felt very much alone. "Are you the mail-order bride?" asked a voice behind her. Eleanor turned around. A tall man with dark hair and a thick mustache stood there. He wore dusty work clothes and a wide hat. His face looked serious, almost angry. "Yes, I am Eleanor Hartwell. I am here to marry Samuel Garrett. Are you Samuel?" The man looked at her for a long moment. Then he took off his hat. "No, miss, I am Jake Garrett, Samuel's brother. I have bad news for you." Eleanor felt her stomach drop. Something was very wrong. What kind of bad news? Samuel is dead. He died 3 weeks ago in a horse accident. The world seemed to spin around Eleanor. She sat down hard on her bag. This could not be happening. She had used all her money to come here. She had quit her job. She had nowhere else to go. "Dead?" she whispered. "Yes." A wild horse threw him. He hit his head on a rock. Jake's voice was not mean, but it was not kind either. "I am sorry you came all this way for nothing." Eleanor tried to think. But his letters. He said he wanted to marry me. We had an agreement. That agreement was with Samuel, not with me. I did not ask for a wife. Jake put his hat back on. "I run the ranch now and I make the decisions. But I have no money to go back. I used everything I had to come here." Eleanor's voice was getting higher. She was trying not to cry. Jake looked uncomfortable. He kicked at the dirt with his boot. "That is not my problem. Samuel made his own choices without asking me. Please, Mr. Garrett, I can work. I am not afraid of hard work. I worked in a factory for 2 years. Ranch work is not factory work. This is no place for a city woman." An old woman came out of the general store. She had been listening to everything. "Jake Garrett, you should be ashamed of yourself. This poor girl came all this way. You cannot just leave her here with nothing." "Mind your own business, Mrs. Patterson," Jake said. "I am making it my business. Your brother Samuel was a good man. He would not want you to treat his promised bride this way." Jake's face got red. "Samuel is dead because of his soft heart. He tried to break that wild mustang with kindness instead of strength. Look where it got him." Mrs. Patterson shook her head. "That horse was mean long before Samuel tried to train it. You know that." Eleanor stood up slowly. An idea was forming in her mind. "You said a wild horse killed your brother?" "A black Mustang stallion. Meanest horse you ever saw. 30 of the best cowboys in Montana have tried to break that horse. It has hurt every one of them." "What will you do with the horse?" Jake looked surprised by the question. "Nothing. It sits in a pen eating my hay and doing no good for anyone. I should have shot it already." Eleanor remembered her grandfather's words from long ago. "Every horse can be trained if you know how to talk to it." She looked straight at Jake. "Let me try to train your horse." Jake laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "You? A city woman, who probably never saw a horse up close. If I can train your horse, will you let me stay on the ranch? Give me a job and a place to live? And when you fail? When that horse kills you, like it killed my brother?" Eleanor lifted her chin. "Then I will be dead and not your problem anymore," Mrs. Patterson gasped. "Child, do not say such things." But Jake was looking at Eleanor with new interest. "You are serious." "Very serious. I have nothing left to lose." Jake thought for a long moment. The other people on the street had stopped to listen. "Tell you what, city girl, I will give you 3 months. If you can train Thunder, that is the horse's name. If you can train Thunder so I can ride him, I will give you a job as head horse trainer. Full pay, your own room, 3 meals a day. And if I fail? If you fail, you work in my kitchen for no pay until you earn enough money to go back to Boston. Could take years." Eleanor thought about this. It was not a good deal, but it was the only deal she had. "What if the horse kills me?" "Then I guess you will not have to worry about going back to Boston." The old woman shook her head. "Jake, this is not right." But Eleanor was already nodding. "I accept your deal." Jake looked surprised that she agreed so quickly. "You do not even know what you are getting into." "I know enough. I know that horse has beaten 30 men who thought they could break him with force. Maybe it is time someone tried a different way." "What different way?" Eleanor picked up her bag. "That is something I will have to figure out." Jake studied her face. Maybe he saw something there that he had not expected. "All right then, get in my wagon. Let me take you to the ranch so you can meet your death." As Eleanor climbed into Jake's wagon, she touched the old rope in her bag. "Do not worry, grandfather," she whispered. "I remember everything you taught me." The wagon rolled away from Copper Creek toward the mountains. Eleanor did not know what waited for her at the Garrett Ranch, but she knew one thing for sure. She was not going back to Boston as a failure. She would train that wild Mustang or die trying. Behind them, Mrs. Patterson watched the wagon disappear. "Lord help that poor child," she said to herself. "She is going to need all the help she can get." The wagon ride to the Garrett Ranch took 2 hours. Jake did not talk much during the trip. He pointed out a few things like the river and some cattle, but mostly he just looked straight ahead. Eleanor tried to start conversations, but Jake only gave short answers. Eleanor used the quiet time to look at the land around her. She had never seen anything like it. The grass was thick in some places and thin in others. Groups of cattle with long horns grazed in the distance. She saw a few horses running free across the hills. They looked wild and beautiful. "Are those your horses?" she asked, pointing to the running animals. "Some of them. Others are wild mustangs. This land used to be full of wild horses before people came. They are beautiful." Jake looked at her strangely. "They are just horses." Eleanor did not answer, but she did not agree. To her, horses were never just horses. Each one had its own personality, its own fears and hopes. Her grandfather had taught her that when she was very young. Finally, they came over a hill and Eleanor saw the Garrett Ranch spread out below them. It was much bigger than she had expected. The main house was made of logs and stone. It had 2 stories and a wide porch around the front. There were several other buildings, including a big red barn, a bunkhouse for the Cowboys, and many smaller sheds. "This is quite a place," Eleanor said. "Samuel and I built most of it ourselves. Took us 10 years. There was sadness in Jake's voice when he talked about his brother. As they got closer, Eleanor could see men working around the buildings. Some were fixing fences, others were brushing horses. They all stopped their work to stare at the wagon as it came up the road. "Word travels fast out here," Jake said. "They all know about Samuel's mail-order bride by now." Eleanor felt her face get hot. She did not like being stared at. But she held her head up and tried to look confident. Jake stopped the wagon in front of the main house. A large man with gray hair and a thick beard came out to meet them. He had kind eyes but a serious expression. "This is Tom Henderson, my foreman," Jake said as they climbed down from the wagon. "Tom, this is Eleanor Hartwell. She was supposed to marry Samuel." Tom took off his hat. "Sorry for your loss, miss. Samuel was a good man." "Thank you," Eleanor said quietly. "Tom, Miss Hartwell here thinks she can train Thunder," Jake said. Eleanor could hear the joke in his voice. Tom's eyes got wide. "Train Thunder? Miss, that horse is dangerous. He has hurt a lot of good men." "So I have heard. How long have you been trying to break him?" 2 years now. Ever since Jake caught him up in the high country. We have tried everything. Ropes, whips, starving, him down. Nothing works, he just gets meaner." Eleanor felt her heart sink a little. Whips and starving were the old ways of breaking horses. The cruel ways. No wonder Thunder was mean and angry. "Can I see him?" she asked. Jake and Tom looked at each other. "I suppose," Jake said. "Might as well see what you are getting yourself into." They walked toward the back of the ranch where a very strong wooden pen had been built. Eleanor could hear loud noises coming from inside it. Banging, snorting, and the sound of hooves hitting wood. As they got closer, Eleanor saw him. Thunder was the most beautiful horse she had ever seen. He was completely black except for a small white star on his forehead. He was big and strong with muscles that showed under his shiny coat. Right now he was running back and forth in the pen like a caged wild animal. When Thunder saw the people coming, he ran straight at the fence. He reared up on his back legs and hit the top rail with his front hooves. The whole fence shook. His eyes were wild with anger and fear. "Good Lord," Eleanor whispered. "Still want to train him?" Jake asked. Eleanor watched Thunder carefully. Yes, he was angry and dangerous, but she could see something else in his eyes. Pain. This horse was not just mean. He was hurt and scared and fighting for his life. "How do you feed him?" she asked. "We throw hay over the fence and put water in that trough by the gate. No one goes in there with him." "Has anyone ever tried to just sit with him? Not trying to do anything, just being near him?" Tom laughed. "Miss, that horse would kill anyone who stayed near his pen for very long." Eleanor walked closer to the fence. Thunder immediately came charging at her, his teeth showing and his ears back. But Eleanor did not move away. She stood very still and looked at him. "Hello, Thunder," she said in a soft voice. "I know you are angry. I know people have hurt you, but I am not going to hurt you." Thunder hit the fence again, but this time he did not rear up. He stood there staring at Eleanor with his head high and his nostrils wide. "I think you are beautiful," Eleanor continued in the same soft voice. "I think you are smart and strong and brave. No one should have tried to break your spirit." Jake and Tom were watching this with amazement. Thunder had stopped running back and forth. He was just standing there looking at Eleanor. "How did you do that?" Tom asked. "I did not do anything, I just talked to him." "Horses do not understand talking," Jake said. Eleanor turned to look at him. "Do you really believe that? Have you never had a horse that seemed to know what you were thinking?" Jake's face got red. "Horses are animals. You feed them, you work them, you sell them when you are done with them. Is that how you felt about the horse that killed your brother? Jake's face got even redder. That horse was different. Samuel spoiled him, made him soft. What was that horse's name? Sonny, a yellow horse with a white mane. Jake's voice got quiet. Samuel raised him from a baby, taught him tricks. That horse would follow Samuel around like a dog. And what happened to Sonny after the accident? I sold him. Did not want any reminders around. Eleanor felt sad for Jake. She could see that. He had loved that horse too, but his grief had made him angry. Tom cleared his throat. We should get you settled in the house, miss. It will be dark soon. Eleanor took one more look at Thunder. The horse was still watching her, but he seemed calmer now. I will see you tomorrow, Thunder. We are going to become friends. Thunder snorted and tossed his head, but he did not charge the fence again. Jake showed Eleanor to a small room on the second floor of the house. It had a bed, a chair, a small table, and a window that looked out toward the mountains. It was simple, but clean. Supper is at 6, Jake said. Mrs. Chen cooks for us. She will show you where everything is. Mrs. Chen? Chinese woman. Her husband worked on the railroad. He died last winter and she needed a job. She is a good cook. Eleanor was surprised. She had not expected to find a Chinese woman on a Montana ranch. After Jake left, Eleanor sat on the bed and thought about everything that had happened. This morning she had been on a stagecoach thinking she was going to meet her new husband. Now she was alone on a ranch with a man who did not want her here, getting ready to try to train a horse that had defeated 30 experienced cowboys. She looked out the window at Thunder's pen. Even from here she could hear him moving around. Tomorrow she would start the most important work of her life. She had 3 months to succeed, or she would spend years working as a kitchen servant with no pay. Eleanor opened her bag and took out her grandfather's old rope. It was made of soft leather and had been used to train hundreds of horses over the years. Her grandfather had taught her that a horse's trust was more valuable than its fear. I hope you are watching over me, grandfather, she whispered. I am going to need all the help I can get. Outside, the sun was setting behind the mountains. The sky turned orange and pink and purple. It was the most beautiful sunset Eleanor had ever seen. Maybe Montana would not be such a bad place to live after all, if she could survive long enough to enjoy it. At supper, Eleanor met Mrs. Chen and 3 of the ranch hands. The cowboys were polite but quiet. They clearly thought she was crazy for wanting to work with Thunder. Mrs. Chen was kind and made sure Eleanor had plenty to eat. You be very careful with that horse, Mrs. Chen said in her soft voice. He has anger in his heart. I know, Eleanor replied, but I think under that anger is a good horse who has been hurt too many times. Jake, who had been quiet during supper, looked up at her. You sound like Samuel. He always thought every animal could be saved with kindness. Maybe he was right. Maybe he was. And maybe that is why he is dead. Eleanor went to bed that night with Jake's words in her mind. Was she making the same mistake that had killed Samuel? Was she being foolish to think she could succeed where 30 men had failed? But as she drifted off to sleep, she remembered Thunder's eyes. Under all that anger and fear, she had seen something else. Intelligence. And maybe, just maybe, a tiny bit of hope. Tomorrow would tell her if she was right or if she was about to make the biggest mistake of her life. Eleanor woke up before sunrise. She had not slept well. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Thunder's angry face and remembered Jake's warning about his brother's death. But she also remembered something else. The way Thunder had stopped charging when she spoke to him softly. She dressed quickly and went downstairs. Mrs. Chen was already in the kitchen making coffee and breakfast. You are up early, Mrs. Chen said with a smile. Nervous about the horse? A little, Eleanor admitted. Mrs. Chen, what can you tell me about Thunder? How did Jake catch him? Mrs. Chen poured Eleanor a cup of coffee. That horse was the leader of a wild herd up in the high mountains. Jake and some men spent weeks tracking them. They built a trap at a water hole, caught Thunder and 5 other horses. What happened to the other horses? Jake sold them to the army, but Thunder was too beautiful to sell. Jake thought he could make Thunder into the best ranch horse in Montana. Eleanor sipped her coffee. How long have you worked here? 6 months. I came after my husband died. Mr. Samuel was very kind to me. He said I could stay as long as I needed. Mrs. Chen's eyes got sad. Mr. Jake is different from his brother. He has a hard heart since Samuel died. Tell me about Samuel. What kind of man was he? Mrs. Chen sat down at the table with Eleanor. Mr. Samuel loved all living things. He saved baby animals. He talked to the horses like they were people. The cowboys sometimes laughed at him, but the horses loved him. And Jake? Mr. Jake sees horses as tools for work. He is not cruel, but he does not understand that animals have feelings too. Eleanor finished her coffee and stood up. I think I will go see Thunder now. Be very careful. That horse has devil in him. Eleanor walked outside into the cool morning air. The sun was just coming up over the mountains, painting the sky pink and gold. She could hear Thunder moving around in his pen before she could see him. When she got close to the fence, Thunder immediately ran to the side closest to her. But this time he did not charge or rear up. He stood there watching her with his head high and his ears pointed forward. Good morning, Thunder, Eleanor said in a calm voice. Did you sleep well? Thunder snorted and took a step closer to the fence. Eleanor could see his scars more clearly in the morning light. There were rope burns on his neck and marks on his sides where spurs had cut him. I can see what they did to you, Eleanor said sadly. No wonder you do not trust people. Eleanor found a wooden box near the fence and sat down on it. Thunder watched every move she made, but he did not run away. I grew up on my grandfather's horse farm in Kentucky, Eleanor said, talking to Thunder like he was a person. My grandfather taught me that every horse is different. Some are brave, some are scared, some are playful, some are serious. But they all want the same things: food, water, safety, and kindness. Thunder's ears moved back and forth as she talked. He seemed to be listening to her voice. My grandfather had a horse named Devil. Everyone said Devil could not be trained. He was mean and dangerous, just like what people say about you. But my grandfather did not give up on him. Eleanor reached into her pocket and pulled out an apple she had taken from the kitchen. She held it up so Thunder could see it. My grandfather taught me that trust has to start somewhere. Usually it starts with food. She tossed the apple gently toward Thunder. It landed about 10 feet away from him. Thunder looked at the apple, then at Eleanor, then back at the apple. After a few minutes, he walked over and sniffed it. Then he ate it quickly. Good boy, Eleanor said softly. That was not so hard, was it? For the next hour, Eleanor just sat and talked to Thunder. She told him about her life in Boston, about the long trip to Montana, about meeting Jake. Thunder listened to every word. Sometimes he moved closer to the fence, sometimes farther away, but he never took his eyes off her. Jake came walking up just as Eleanor was getting ready to leave. What are you doing? Getting to know Thunder. By sitting there talking to him, that is not training. Eleanor stood up and brushed the dust off her dress. It is the first step in training. Before you can teach a horse anything, you have to earn his trust. Samuel tried the trust approach. It got him killed. What exactly happened to Samuel? How did he die? Jake's face got hard. He was trying to ride a new horse, a young stallion he thought he had trained. The horse threw him and he hit his head on a rock. Was it Thunder who killed him? No, it was a different horse, but the principle is the same. Samuel was too soft with horses. He treated them like pets instead of work animals. Eleanor felt relieved that Thunder had not killed Samuel, but she could see that Jake blamed his brother's gentle methods for his death. Mr. Garrett, can I ask you something? What? Why do you want Thunder trained? Why not just sell him or let him go? Jake looked at Thunder, who was standing near the fence watching them. Because that horse represents everything I hate about failure. 30 good men have tried to break him. If he can be trained, it proves that strength and determination can overcome anything. And if he cannot be trained, then maybe some things are just meant to be destroyed. Eleanor felt a chill go down her spine. She was beginning to understand that this was about more than just training a horse. This was about Jake's anger at his brother's death and his need to prove that Samuel's gentle ways were wrong. "I would like to spend more time with Thunder today," Eleanor said, "just sitting near his pen and getting him used to me. Do whatever you want, just remember our deal. 3 months. After Jake left, Eleanor went back to sitting near Thunder's pen. The horse came right up to the fence this time. Eleanor reached into her pocket and pulled out another apple. "Would you like this one too?" She tossed the apple closer to the fence this time. Thunder ate it immediately, then looked at her hopefully. "I think you are starting to like me," Eleanor said with a smile. "That is good, because I am starting to like you too." By noon, Eleanor had made amazing progress. Thunder was eating apples from her hand through the fence. He let her touch his nose with her fingers. He even seemed to enjoy it when she scratched behind his ears. Tom Henderson came by to check on her. "I cannot believe what I am seeing," he said. "That horse has never let anyone touch him before. He just needed someone to be patient with him." "Maybe so, but be careful. Wild horses can change their minds fast. One minute they are gentle, the next minute they are trying to kill you." Eleanor knew Tom was right to be worried. She had seen horses turn dangerous without warning. But she also knew that Thunder was different. There was intelligence in his eyes and a desire to connect with someone who would not hurt him. That afternoon, Eleanor went to the barn to look at the training equipment. She found ropes, whips, spurs, and a cruel device called a twitch that was used to hold a horse's nose while it was being broken. "No wonder Thunder hates people," she said to herself. She looked through the equipment until she found what she was looking for, a soft halter made of rope instead of hard leather. It was old and worn, but it would be gentle on Thunder's head. Eleanor also found a long rope that was soft and light. Her grandfather had taught her to use a rope like this for training. It could guide a horse without hurting it. When she came out of the barn, she saw Jake watching her from the porch of the house. Finding, "What you need," he called out. "I think so. Mr. Garrett, can I ask you to do something for me?" Jake walked over to her. "What?" "Can you ask your men not to bother Thunder when I am not around? I think some of them have been throwing rocks at him or yelling at him when they walk by his pen." "What makes you think that?" "Thunder is more nervous in the afternoons than he is in the mornings. Something is upsetting him between the time I leave and the time I come back." Jake thought about this. "I will talk to the men, but you cannot expect to protect that horse from everything." "I do not want to protect him from everything. I just want to protect him from unnecessary cruelty while he is learning to trust people again." That evening at supper, Eleanor was quiet and thoughtful. She was thinking about her grandfather and all the things he had taught her about horses. "My grandfather always said that breaking a horse and training a horse are two different things," she said suddenly. Everyone at the table looked at her. "What do you mean?" Tom asked. "Breaking a horse means forcing it to obey you through fear and pain. Training a horse means teaching it to work with you because it wants to." "That sounds like Samuel talking," Jake said. There was sadness in his voice. Maybe Samuel understood something important about horses. Maybe he did, but understanding horses and staying alive around them are two different things. Eleanor went to bed that night feeling hopeful. Thunder had let her touch him and had eaten from her hand. It was a small start, but it was a start. But as she lay in the dark, she could not stop thinking about Jake's words. Samuel had died working with horses using gentle methods. What if Jake was right? What if kindness was not enough? She thought about Thunder's scars and the anger in his eyes. 30 men had tried to break him with force and had failed. But what if those 30 men had damaged him so much that he could never trust anyone again? Eleanor touched her grandfather's rope, which she kept under her pillow. Tomorrow she would find out if love and patience could heal the wounds that fear and violence had created. Outside her window, she could hear Thunder moving around in his pen. Even from this distance, Eleanor had been working with Thunder for 2 weeks now. Every morning she came to his pen with apples and soft words. Thunder now came to the fence as soon as he saw her coming. He would eat from her hand and let her touch his face and neck through the fence bars. But Eleanor knew the real test was coming soon. She needed to get inside the pen with Thunder. That was something no one had done and lived to tell about it. This morning felt different. Thunder seemed calmer than usual. When Eleanor arrived at his pen, he was standing quietly near the fence instead of pacing back and forth like he usually did. "Good morning, beautiful boy," Eleanor said as she always did. Thunder nickered softly and came right to the fence. Eleanor had never heard him make that gentle sound before. It was a sound horses made when they were happy to see someone. Eleanor had brought more than apples today. She had her grandfather's soft rope halter and a handful of sweet oats. She also had something new, a wooden flute that had belonged to her mother. "Thunder, I want to try something different today," Eleanor said as she pulled out the flute. "My mother used to play music for the horses on my grandfather's farm. She said it calmed them." Eleanor put the flute to her lips and played a simple, slow song. It was a lullaby her mother had played for her when she was little. Thunder's ears shot forward and he stood perfectly still. His eyes got soft and peaceful. Eleanor had never seen him look so relaxed. She played the song 3 times, and each time Thunder seemed to get calmer. By the 3rd time, he had moved so close to the fence that his nose was almost touching the bars. "You like music, do you?" Eleanor said with a smile. "I will remember that." Eleanor put the flute away and took out the rope halter. Thunder's eyes immediately went to it and his body got tense. "I know, boy. You have bad memories about ropes and halters. But this one is different. This one is soft and gentle." Eleanor held the halter where Thunder could see it and smell it. She let him sniff it through the fence bars. Thunder snorted and shook his head, but he did not run away. "This halter has never hurt any horse," Eleanor continued talking. "My grandfather made it himself. He used it to train over 100 horses and he never hurt a single one." Thunder sniffed the halter again. This time he did not pull his head. In fact, Eleanor knew this was the moment. If she was going to try to go into the pen with Thunder, it had to be now while he was calm and trusting. "Thunder, I am going to come into your pen now. I am not going to try to put this halter on you today. I just want to stand near you and let you get used to me being in your space." Eleanor walked to the gate of the pen. Her hands were shaking as she lifted the heavy wooden bar that held it closed. She had watched Jake and Tom do this many times, but they always had whips and ropes ready in case Thunder charged. Eleanor had no whip, no rope except the soft halter, no protection except her grandfather's teachings and her faith that Thunder had learned to trust her. The gate swung open with a loud creak. Thunder's head shot up, and he stared at the open gate. For a moment, Eleanor thought he might try to run out, but instead he just stood there watching her. "I am coming in now, Thunder, nice and slow." Eleanor stepped into the pen and immediately closed the gate behind her. She was now locked in with the most dangerous horse in Montana. Thunder took a few steps back, but he did not charge or rear up. He just watched Eleanor with bright, intelligent eyes. "Hello, handsome," Eleanor said softly. "How does it feel to have company in your home?" Eleanor stood very still about 10 feet away from Thunder. She did not try to move closer. She just let him look at her and decide what to do. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, Thunder took a small step toward Eleanor. Then another step. Then another. Eleanor's heart was beating so fast she was sure Thunder could hear it. But she kept her breathing slow and even, just like her grandfather had taught her. Thunder stopped about 3 feet away from Eleanor. This was closer than he had ever been to a person without a fence between them. Eleanor could see every detail of his beautiful face. She could smell his warm horse smell. She could hear his breathing. "You are even more beautiful up close," Eleanor whispered. Thunder stretched his neck toward Eleanor and sniffed her hair. His breath was warm on her face. Eleanor wanted to reach out and touch him, but she knew it was too soon. This moment was about letting Thunder choose to trust her. Thunder sniffed Eleanor's shoulder, then her arm, then her hand. Finally, very gently, he touched her palm with his soft nose. Eleanor had tears in her eyes. This wild horse who had hurt 30 men was being gentle with her. He was choosing to trust her. "Thank you, Thunder," she whispered. "Thank you for trusting me." From outside the pen, Eleanor heard a gasp. She turned her head slightly and saw Tom Henderson standing there with his mouth open. "Miss Eleanor, Tom said very quietly. Do not move. I am going to get my rope. No, Eleanor said firmly but softly. Do not get anything, just watch. Eleanor turned back to Thunder. The horse was still standing close to her, but he was now looking at Tom with suspicious eyes. It is all right, boy, Eleanor said. Tom is a friend. He will not hurt you. Thunder looked back at Eleanor, then at Tom, then at Eleanor again. He seemed to be thinking about whether to trust this situation. Eleanor slowly reached into her pocket and pulled out some oats. She held them in her flat palm for Thunder to see. Thunder immediately focused on the oats. He took them gently from Eleanor's hand, his soft lips barely touching her skin. Good boy, Eleanor said. You are such a good boy. More men had come to watch now. Eleanor could hear their voices, but she tried to ignore them. She needed to focus on Thunder. Thunder finished the oats and looked at Eleanor hopefully. She gave him another handful, then another. Each time he took them more confidently. Miss Eleanor, Tom called softly. You have been in there for almost an hour. Maybe you should come out now. Eleanor was surprised. It felt like she had only been in the pen for a few minutes, but she knew Tom was right to be careful. Thunder, I am going to leave now, but I will come back tomorrow and next time I will stay longer. Eleanor took one small step backward. Thunder followed her. She took another step back. Thunder followed again. Eleanor smiled. Thunder did not want her to leave. He was starting to think of her as his friend. I have to go now, boy. But look. Eleanor held up the soft halter. Tomorrow I am going to try to put this on you. It will not hurt, I promise. Eleanor continued walking backward toward the gate. Thunder followed her all the way there. When Eleanor opened the gate and stepped out, Thunder put his head over the fence and nickered softly. I know, Eleanor said as she scratched behind his ears. I do not want to leave either. Tom was staring at Eleanor like she had just performed a miracle. I have never seen anything like that in my life. That horse followed you around like a pet dog. He is a good horse. He just needed someone to show him kindness. Jake is going to have a hard time believing this. Eleanor looked around and saw that about 6 ranch hands had gathered to watch. They were all staring at her with amazement. Where is Jake? She asked. He rode out to check on the cattle this morning. He should be back by evening. Eleanor spent the rest of the day thinking about what had happened. She had actually been inside Thunder's pen and he had not hurt her. In fact, he had been gentle and affectionate. But she also knew that the hardest part was still coming. Getting Thunder to accept a halter would be much more difficult than just standing near him. And eventually, she would have to put a saddle on him and ride him. That was when most horses fought the hardest. That evening at supper, the ranch hands could talk about nothing but Eleanor and Thunder. I never seen anything like it, said Charlie, one of the younger cowboys. That horse was gentle as a lamb with her. She has some kind of magic power over horses, said another man named Pete. It is not magic, Eleanor said. It is just patience and understanding. Jake came in just as they were finishing supper. His clothes were dusty and he looked tired from a long day on the range. I hear you caused quite a stir today, he said to Eleanor. I went into Thunder's pen for the first time. Jake sat down hard in his chair. You did what? She was in there for almost an hour, Tom said. Thunder followed her around like a puppy. Jake looked at Eleanor like she had lost her mind. Do you have any idea how dangerous that was? That horse could have killed you. But he did not. He was gentle with me. This time. But wild horses are unpredictable. Just because he was calm today does not mean he will be calm tomorrow. Eleanor could see that Jake was worried about her, even though he tried to act like he did not care. I was very careful. I only went in when Thunder was calm and relaxed. Eleanor, I need you to promise me something. What? Promise me you will never go into that pen alone again. Always have someone watching who can help if something goes wrong. Eleanor thought about this. It was a reasonable request. All right, I promise. Good. Because I do not want to have to write another letter telling someone's family that a horse killed their daughter. Eleanor saw the pain in Jake's eyes when he said this. She realized that Jake was not just worried about Thunder hurting her. He was remembering his brother's death and could not bear the thought of losing someone else to a horse accident. That night, Eleanor lay in bed thinking about Thunder. It had been 1 month since Eleanor arrived at the Garrett Ranch. Every day she spent hours with Thunder, and every day he trusted her a little more. She could now go into his pen whenever she wanted. She could touch him all over his body. She could clean his hooves and brush his coat, but she still had not been able to get a halter on him. Every time Eleanor brought the halter near Thunder's head, he would back away and shake his head. The scars on his neck showed why. Previous attempts to halter him had involved ropes that cut into his skin and men who forced the halter on while he fought. Eleanor knew she needed to be more patient, but she was running out of time. She only had 2 months left to complete her training of Thunder. Jake reminded her of this fact almost every day. This morning was different, though. When Eleanor arrived at Thunder's pen, he was standing right at the gate waiting for her. As soon as she opened the gate, he walked up to her and gently touched her shoulder with his nose. "Good morning, beautiful boy," Eleanor said as she scratched behind his ears. "You seem happy today." Thunder nickered softly and followed Eleanor to the center of the pen. This had become their routine. Eleanor would play her flute for a few minutes while Thunder listened. Then she would brush him and clean his hooves. After that, she would try to work with the halter. Eleanor sat down on a wooden box she had brought into the pen and took out her flute. Thunder immediately moved closer and stood very still while she played. The music always seemed to calm him and make him more willing to try new things. Today, Eleanor played a new song, a cheerful tune her mother had taught her. Thunder's ears moved back and forth with the melody, and Eleanor could swear he was almost dancing to the music. When she finished playing, Eleanor put the flute away and picked up her brush. Thunder loved being brushed. He would stretch his neck and lean into the brush like a cat being petted. "You know, Thunder," Eleanor said as she brushed his shiny black coat, "I think you are getting spoiled. Pretty soon you are going to expect royal treatment all the time." Thunder turned his head and looked at Eleanor as if he understood what she was saying. Then he gently pushed her shoulder with his nose, making her laugh. Eleanor had learned that Thunder had a sense of humor. He liked to play little games like hiding her flute or stealing her hat. He was nothing like the angry, dangerous horse that 30 cowboys had tried to break. After brushing, Eleanor sat down again and picked up the soft halter. Thunder's body immediately got tense, but he did not move away. "I know you do not like this, boy, but if we are going to work together, you need to wear a halter sometimes. This one will not hurt you, I promise." Eleanor held the halter, where Thunder could see it. She let him sniff it and even touch it with his nose. Thunder snorted softly, but stayed close to her. "What if we try something different today?" Eleanor said. "What if I just put the halter near your head without trying to put it on?" Eleanor slowly lifted the halter and held it next to Thunder's head without touching him. Thunder's eyes got wide and he moved his head away, but he did not run. "Good boy. You are being so brave." Eleanor repeated this several times, each time holding the halter a little closer to Thunder's head. By the 10th time, Thunder was not moving away at all. "Thunder, you are amazing. I think you are ready to try the next step." Eleanor very slowly moved the halter until it was touching Thunder's cheek. Thunder trembled but stood still. "Such a good boy. You are the bravest horse in Montana." From outside the pen, Eleanor heard someone clapping. She looked up and saw Mrs. Chen standing at the fence with a big smile on her face. "That was beautiful to watch," Mrs. Chen said. "He trusts you so much." "We are making progress, but it is slow. The best things always take time." Mrs. Chen was right, but Eleanor was worried about time. Jake was getting impatient with her slow methods. Yesterday, he had asked her if she thought she would be ready to ride Thunder by the end of her 3 months. Eleanor knew that riding Thunder was still a long way off. First, she had to get the halter on him. Then she had to get him used to a lead rope, then a saddle, then a bridle. Each step could take weeks. But looking at Thunder now, standing calmly with the halter touching his face, Eleanor felt hopeful. Maybe they could do it. "Mrs. Chen, can I ask you something?" Of course. How is Jake doing? I mean, how is he handling his brother's death? Mrs. Chen's face got sad. Mr. Jake carries much pain. He blames himself for Samuel's accident. Why does he blame himself? The day Samuel died, he and Jake had an argument about training horses. Jake said Samuel's gentle methods were dangerous. Samuel got angry and went to ride the new horse to prove Jake wrong. That is when the accident happened. Eleanor felt her heart sink. Now she understood why Jake was so against gentle training methods. He thought his argument with Samuel had caused his brother's death. Does Jake think I am making the same mistake Samuel made? I think Jake is afraid you will get hurt like Samuel did. But I also think he wants you to succeed. Why? Because if you can train Thunder using Samuel's gentle ways, it will prove that Samuel was not wrong. It will help heal Jake's guilty heart. Eleanor thought about this as she continued working with Thunder. No wonder Jake seemed so conflicted about her training methods. Part of him wanted her to fail because that would prove his harsh methods were right. But part of him wanted her to succeed because that would prove Samuel had not died for nothing. Eleanor spent another hour working with the halter. By the end of the session, she was able to lay the halter across Thunder's neck and even drape it over his ears for a few seconds. Tomorrow, Thunder. Tomorrow we are going to try to get this halter all the way on. Thunder nickered and pushed his nose against Eleanor's pocket, looking for treats. You are getting very demanding, you know that? Eleanor laughed as she gave him an apple. That afternoon, Eleanor was surprised when Jake came to find her. Can you show me what you have been doing with Thunder? He asked. Of course, but why now? Tom told me you almost got a halter on him today. I want to see for myself. Eleanor felt nervous as they walked to Thunder's pen. Jake had not watched her work with Thunder since that first day when he made the challenge. She hoped Thunder would behave well with Jake watching. Thunder was waiting at the gate when they arrived. As soon as he saw Eleanor, he came right to the fence and nickered a greeting. Well, I will be, Jake said quietly. He acts like he has been waiting for you. Eleanor went into the pen and Thunder immediately came to her side. Jake watched from outside the fence as Eleanor brushed Thunder and played her flute. When Eleanor picked up the halter, Jake's body got tense. Be careful, Eleanor. But Thunder stood perfectly still as Eleanor placed the halter across his neck and over his ears. Jake's mouth fell open. How did you do that? That horse tried to kill 3 men just for holding a halter near him. I started very slowly. First, I just let him see the halter, then smell it, then touch it. It took weeks to get to this point. Jake watched as Eleanor continued working with Thunder. The horse was completely relaxed and trusting. He really does trust you, Jake said, and there was wonder in his voice. Trust takes time, but once you have it, it is stronger than fear. Jake was quiet for a long time, just watching Eleanor and Thunder work together. Finally, he said, You remind me of Samuel. He used to say that every animal deserved kindness. Samuel sounds like he was a wise man. Maybe he was. I used to think his kindness made him weak, but looking at you and Thunder, maybe I was wrong. Eleanor could hear the pain in Jake's voice. She wanted to help him, but she did not know what to say. Jake, can I tell you something my grandfather taught me? What? He said that gentleness is not weakness. It takes more strength to be patient and kind than it does to be harsh and forceful. Jake looked at Thunder, who was now standing with his head resting on Eleanor's shoulder. Maybe your grandfather was right. Maybe Samuel was right too. Eleanor felt tears in her eyes. This was the first time Jake had said anything good about his brother's methods. I think Samuel would be proud of what you are doing with Thunder, Jake said softly. That evening at supper, Jake was different. He asked Eleanor questions about her training methods. He wanted to know how she had learned to work with horses. He even asked if she thought Thunder would ever be completely safe to ride. With enough time and patience, yes, Eleanor said, but it cannot be rushed. How much more time do you think you need? Eleanor thought carefully before answering. To get him completely trained? Probably 6 months. Jake's face fell. You only have 2 months left, I know. I can probably get a halter and laid rope on him by then, maybe even a saddle. But riding him safely will take longer. The deal was that you had to train him so I could ride him. I remember the deal. Jake looked troubled. Eleanor could see that he was torn between wanting to stick to their agreement and wanting to give her more time. Let me think about it, Jake said finally. That night, Eleanor went to Thunder's pen one more time before bed. Thunder came to the fence when he saw her. Tomorrow is a big day, boy. Tomorrow we are going to try to get that halter all the way on you. Thunder pushed his nose through the fence bars and Eleanor scratched his forehead. I hope Jake gives us more time, because you and we are just getting started. Thunder whinnied softly, and Eleanor chose to believe it meant he agreed with her. The next morning started like any other. Eleanor woke up early, had coffee with Mrs. Chen, and walked out to Thunder's pen with her flute, brush, and the soft halter. Thunder was waiting for her at the gate, as always, but something felt different today. Thunder seemed more alert than usual. His ears kept turning toward the mountains, and he would lift his head and sniff the air. "What is it, boy?" Eleanor asked as she went into the pen. "Do you hear something?" Eleanor played her flute as usual, but Thunder did not seem as relaxed as he normally was. He kept looking toward the hills while she played. When Eleanor finished the song and picked up the halter, Thunder came to her like always. Today felt like the day they would finally get the halter completely on him. Eleanor started the way she always did, letting Thunder see and smell the halter. Then she slowly lifted it toward his head. "Today is the day, Thunder. I can feel it." Thunder stood perfectly still as Eleanor positioned the halter near his head. She slipped the noseband over his muzzle. Thunder trembled but did not pull away. "Good boy. You are being so brave." Eleanor slowly brought the headpiece up behind Thunder's ears. This was the hardest part. This was where Thunder always got nervous and backed away. But today, Thunder stood like a statue. Eleanor carefully buckled the halter behind his ears. "You did it, Thunder. You are wearing a halter." Eleanor was so excited she wanted to shout, but she kept her voice calm so she would not scare Thunder. The beautiful black horse was now wearing his first halter, and he was acting like it was no big deal. Eleanor attached a long, soft rope to the halter. "Now let us see if you remember how to lead." Eleanor took a few steps away from Thunder and gently pulled on the rope. Thunder looked at the rope, then at Eleanor, then took a step toward her. "Perfect. You remember what leading means." Eleanor led Thunder around the pen for several minutes. He followed her everywhere she went, just like a well-trained horse. It was hard to believe this was the same animal that had defeated 30 cowboys. Thunder was doing so well that Eleanor decided to try something new. She led him to the gate of the pen. "Thunder, would you like to come outside? Would you like to see the world beyond your pen?" Thunder's ears shot forward with interest. Eleanor could tell he was curious about what lay beyond the fence that had kept him prisoner for 2 years. Eleanor opened the gate and led Thunder out of his pen for the first time since Jake had captured him. Thunder stopped in the gateway and looked around with wonder. He sniffed the air and pawed the ground with his front hoof. Then he followed Eleanor into the yard. "Look at you, Thunder. You are free." Eleanor led Thunder around the ranch yard. He was fascinated by everything. The barn, the other horses in the pasture, the chickens pecking in the dirt. But he never pulled on the rope or tried to run away. He stayed right beside Eleanor. Tom Henderson came out of the barn and saw them. His mouth fell open. "Miss Eleanor, how did you get that halter on him?" "Very carefully and very slowly," Eleanor laughed. "And he is leading perfectly. I cannot believe what I am seeing. That horse is acting like he has been trained his whole life." Eleanor was leading Thunder toward the barn when she heard a sound that made her blood run cold. It was the sound of hoofbeats coming fast from the direction of the mountains. Thunder heard it too. His head shot up and his whole body went tense. Eleanor looked toward the hills and saw a group of wild horses running toward the ranch. "Oh no," Tom said. "That is Thunder's old herd. They must have caught his scent." The wild horses were getting closer. There were about 15 of them, led by a big brown stallion. They were running straight toward the ranch yard. Thunder started trembling with excitement. He had not seen his family for 2 years. Eleanor could feel him pulling slightly on the rope as the wild horses got closer. "Easy, Thunder. Easy, boy." But Eleanor could see the longing in Thunder's eyes. These were his people, his family, and they were calling to him. The wild horses stopped about 50 yards away from where Eleanor and Thunder stood. The brown stallion called out to Thunder with a loud whinny. Thunder answered back with a call that seemed to come from his very soul. "Miss Eleanor," Tom said urgently, "you need to get that horse back in his pen right now. If those wild horses charge, Thunder will try to go with them." Eleanor knew Tom was right, but she also knew it was too late. Thunder was staring at his old herd with such longing that Eleanor's heart broke for him. The brown stallion called again and started walking toward Thunder. The rest of the herd followed. Thunder began pulling on the rope, not hard, but with determination. He wanted to go to his family. Eleanor had a choice to make. She could try to force Thunder back into his pen, which would probably ruin all the trust they had built. Or she could let him choose what he wanted to do. "Thunder," Eleanor said softly, "I know you want to go with them. I know they are your family and you miss them." Thunder looked at Eleanor, then at the approaching wild horses, then back at Eleanor. "If you want to go with them, I will let you go. I will not try to stop you," Tom gasped. "Miss Eleanor, you cannot. Let him go. Jake will never forgive you." But Eleanor was not thinking about Jake right now. She was thinking about Thunder and what would make him happy. The wild horses were only 20 yards away now. The brown stallion was calling insistently to Thunder. Thunder pulled harder on the rope. Eleanor could have held him back, but instead, she did something that shocked everyone watching. She unclipped the rope from Thunder's halter. "You are free, Thunder. Go if you want to go." Thunder stood there for a moment, free of all restraints. He could run to his wild family and never look back. He could return to the mountains and the free life he had known before Jake captured him. The wild horses were right there, calling to him, begging him to come home. Thunder looked at them, then looked at Eleanor. He took one step toward the wild horses, then another. Eleanor felt tears in her eyes. She had known this moment might come. She had always known that Thunder belonged in the wild, not in a pen on a ranch. "Go on, boy. Be free and be happy." Thunder took another step toward his family. The brown stallion nickered encouragingly. But then Thunder stopped. He turned around and looked at Eleanor again. For a long moment, the whole world seemed to hold its breath. The wild horses waited. Tom waited. Eleanor waited. Then Thunder did something that no one expected. He walked back to Eleanor and gently pushed his nose against her shoulder. The wild horses called to him again, more urgently this time. But Thunder stayed beside Eleanor. "Thunder," Eleanor whispered, "are you sure? They are your family." Thunder looked at the wild horses one more time. Then he turned his back on them and walked closer to Eleanor. The brown stallion called out one last time, a sound full of sadness and longing. When Thunder did not respond, the stallion turned and led the herd back toward the mountains. Eleanor watched them go with tears streaming down her face. Thunder had chosen to stay with her instead of returning to his wild family. "I cannot believe what I just saw," Tom said in amazement. "That horse chose you over his own kind." Eleanor was too emotional to speak. She just stood there stroking Thunder's neck while he rested his head on her shoulder. By the time Jake rode up a few minutes later, the wild horses were gone, and Thunder was grazing peacefully in the yard, still wearing his halter. "What happened here?" Jake asked as he climbed down from his horse. Tom sent word that Thunder's old herd came to the ranch. "They did," Eleanor said, "and I gave Thunder the choice to go with them." Jake's face went white. "You what?" "I let him choose, and he chose to stay." Jake looked at Thunder grazing calmly nearby. "He chose to stay, even when he could have gone back to the wild?" "Yes. He chose me over his freedom." Jake stared at Thunder for a long time without saying anything. Eleanor could see that he was deeply moved by what had happened. "That horse trusts you more than he loves his freedom?" Jake said finally. "I have never seen anything like it." Eleanor clipped the rope back onto Thunder's halter and led him back to his pen. But now the pen felt different. It was no longer a prison. It was Thunder's home because he had chosen to make it his home. That evening at supper, the whole ranch was talking about what had happened. Everyone was amazed that Thunder had chosen to stay rather than return to the wild. "I still cannot believe it," Charlie said. "That horse loved his freedom more than anything, but he loves Miss Eleanor more." Jake was quiet during supper, but Eleanor could see he was thinking hard about something. After the meal, Jake asked Eleanor to walk with him on the porch. "What you did today was either very brave or very foolish," he said. "Maybe both. You could have lost everything. If Thunder had run off with those wild horses, our deal would have been finished. I know, but I could not force him to stay. Real trust cannot be built on force." Jake leaned against the porch railing and looked out toward Thunder's pen. "Samuel would have done the same thing you did. He always said that animals should have choices. Do you think that was wrong?" Jake was quiet for a long time. "A month ago I would have said yes, but after what I saw today I am not sure anymore." Eleanor could hear the change in Jake's voice. Something had shifted in his thinking. "Eleanor, I want to change our deal." Eleanor's heart sank. "What do you mean?" "I mean I want to give you more time. After what happened today, I think you and Thunder deserve the chance to finish what you started." 2 weeks had passed since Thunder chose to stay with Eleanor instead of returning to the wild. Every day since then had brought new progress. Thunder now wore his halter all the time and followed Eleanor around the ranch like a loyal dog. She had even gotten a saddle blanket on him without any trouble. Today, Eleanor was planning to try putting a real saddle on Thunder for the first time. She felt nervous but excited as she carried the lightest saddle she could find to Thunder's pen. Thunder was waiting for her at the gate as usual, but something seemed different about him. He was more alert and nervous than he had been lately. His ears kept turning toward the bunkhouse, and he would lift his head and sniff the air. "What is wrong, boy?" Eleanor asked as she entered the pen. "You seem worried about something." Eleanor tried to calm Thunder with her usual routine. She played her flute and brushed his coat. But Thunder remained tense and distracted. When Eleanor picked up the saddle, Thunder's eyes got wide and he backed away several steps. "I know this looks scary, Thunder, but remember how afraid you were of the halter? And now you wear it all the time." Eleanor spent an hour just letting Thunder see and smell the saddle. She set it on the ground near him and let him investigate. Slowly, Thunder began to relax. "Good boy. It is just a saddle, it cannot hurt you." Eleanor was making good progress when she heard footsteps approaching the pen. She looked up and saw Brock Morrison, Jake's foreman, walking toward them. Eleanor had never liked Morrison. He was a big, rough man who believed in breaking horses through force and fear. He had made it clear that he thought Eleanor's gentle methods were foolish. "Morning, Miss Eleanor," Morrison said as he leaned against the fence. "Trying to put a saddle on the killer horse, I see." "Thunder is not a killer horse," Eleanor said firmly. "He has never hurt anyone who treated him with kindness." Morrison laughed. "That horse is a wild animal. All this gentle talk is nonsense. One day he is going to hurt you bad, and then we will see how much good your kindness does." Thunder was getting more nervous with Morrison nearby. Eleanor could see the horse's muscles getting tense. "Mr. Morrison, you are making Thunder nervous. Could you please leave us alone?" "This is a free ranch, miss. I can stand wherever I want." Eleanor tried to ignore Morrison and continue working with Thunder, but it was difficult. Thunder kept looking at Morrison with suspicious eyes. Finally, Morrison got bored and walked away. Eleanor breathed a sigh of relief and Thunder immediately began to relax. "That man has bad energy," Eleanor said to Thunder. "No wonder you do not like him." Eleanor spent the rest of the morning getting Thunder used to the saddle. By noon, she was able to lay it across his back for a few seconds at a time. "You are doing so well, Thunder. Tomorrow we will try to actually buckle it on." Eleanor was putting the saddle away when Mrs. Chen came hurrying toward the pen. She looked worried. "Eleanor, I need to talk to you about something important." "What is it?" Mrs. Chen looked around to make sure no one else was listening. "I think someone has been bothering Thunder at night." Eleanor felt her stomach drop. "What do you mean?" "Last night I could not sleep, so I went for a walk. I saw someone near Thunder's pen with a stick or a rope. When Thunder made noise, the person ran away. Did you see who it was? It was too dark, but it was a big man. And he smelled like tobacco. Eleanor knew that Morrison chewed tobacco all the time. Her hands clenched into fists. Mrs. Chen, why would someone want to bother Thunder? Maybe someone does not want you to succeed with training him. Eleanor thought about this. If someone was tormenting Thunder at night, it would explain why he had been more nervous lately. It would also make her training much harder. What should I do? Be very careful, and maybe you should tell Jake. That evening at supper, Eleanor noticed that Morrison was not at the table. Where is Brock tonight? She asked Jake. He said he was not feeling well. Why? Eleanor decided not to say anything yet. She needed to be sure before she accused Morrison of sabotaging her work. After supper, Eleanor went to check on Thunder. He seemed calm and relaxed, much better than he had been that morning. Good night, beautiful boy, she said as she scratched behind his ears. Tomorrow we are going to get that saddle buckled on you. Eleanor was walking back to the house when she saw a shadow moving near the barn. She stopped and watched carefully. Someone was definitely moving around in the darkness. Eleanor quietly followed the shadow. Her heart was beating fast as she tried to stay hidden. The shadow moved toward Thunder's pen. Eleanor crept closer and hid behind a water trough where she could see everything. The figure was carrying something long. It looked like a cattle prod. Eleanor's blood ran cold. A cattle prod would give painful electric shocks. No wonder Thunder had been nervous if someone was using that on him. The figure approached Thunder's pen quietly. Thunder immediately sensed danger and moved to the far side of the pen. Eleanor could now see clearly that it was Morrison. He was holding a cattle prod and seemed to be planning to shock Thunder through the fence. Eleanor knew she had to stop this, but Morrison was much bigger and stronger than she was. She needed help, but there was no time to get help. Morrison was already reaching the cattle prod through the fence toward Thunder. Stop! Eleanor shouted as she ran toward the pen. Morrison spun around, shocked to be caught. What are you doing? Out here? What am I doing? What are you doing? Get away from Thunder! I am just checking on the horses, Morrison said, but he was hiding the cattle prod behind his back. Show me what you have in your hand, Eleanor demanded. Nothing that concerns you, little miss. Thunder was now pacing frantically in his pen. Eleanor could see that he was terrified of Morrison. You have been tormenting Thunder at night, haven't you? That is why he has been so nervous lately. Morrison's face got ugly. That horse needs to learn who is boss. Your gentle methods are making him weak. My methods are working. Thunder trusts me now. Trust? Morrison laughed harshly. That horse is a wild animal. He will turn on you the first chance he gets. I am just making sure he remembers what happens when he misbehaves. Eleanor was furious. You have no right to hurt him. I have every right. I am the foreman of this ranch, and that horse is ranch property. Morrison stepped closer to Eleanor, trying to intimidate her. He was much taller than she was and had arms like tree trunks. You better get back to the house, little miss, before you see something you do not want to see. But Eleanor did not back down. I am not going anywhere, and you are not going to hurt Thunder ever again. Morrison laughed. And how are you going to stop me? Eleanor realized she was in real danger. Morrison looked angry enough to hurt her as well as Thunder, but she could not leave Thunder alone with this cruel man. Help! Eleanor shouted as loud as she could. Somebody help me! Morrison grabbed Eleanor's arm roughly. Shut up! You are going to wake the whole ranch. Let go of me! Eleanor tried to pull away, but Morrison's grip was too strong. She could smell the tobacco on his breath and see the mean look in his eyes. Thunder was going crazy in his pen. He was rearing up and hitting the fence, trying to get to Eleanor. The beautiful horse knew she was in danger. Your precious horse cannot help you now, Morrison said with a nasty smile. But Morrison was wrong. Thunder's loud neighing and the sound of him hitting the fence had woken up the bunkhouse. Eleanor could hear voices and see lanterns being lit. Boss. Hey, boss, someone shouted from the bunkhouse. Morrison realized he was about to be caught. He let go of Eleanor and started to walk away quickly. "This is not over," he said to Eleanor. "You better watch yourself." Jake came running from the house with a lantern in his hand. Tom and several other cowboys were coming from the bunkhouse. "Eleanor, what is going on out here?" Jake called. Eleanor was shaking with fear and anger. Morrison was trying to hurt Thunder with a cattle prod. "What?" Jake's voice was dangerous. Eleanor told Jake everything, about Mrs. Chen seeing someone near Thunder's pen, about following Morrison tonight, about the cattle prod. "Where's Morrison now?" Jake asked. "He went toward the bunkhouse when he heard you coming." Jake's face was dark with anger. "Tom, go get Morrison. Bring him here right now." Tom and 2 other cowboys went to find Morrison. Eleanor could hear arguing from the direction of the bunkhouse. A few minutes later, Tom came back with Morrison. The foreman looked angry but also worried. "Brock, Eleanor says you were tormenting Thunder with a cattle prod. Is this true?" "That woman is lying. I was just checking on the horses." "Then you will not mind if we search you," Jake said. Morrison's face went pale. "You do not have the right to search me. This is my ranch. I have the right to do whatever I want." Jake nodded to Tom, who quickly searched Morrison. He found the cattle prod hidden inside Morrison's coat. Jake held up the cattle prod so everyone could see it. "What do you call this, Brock?" Morrison knew he was caught. His face got red and angry. "That horse is dangerous. Your brother died because he was too soft with horses. Now you are letting this city woman make the same mistake." "My brother died in an accident. It had nothing to do with his training methods. Samuel's soft heart got him killed, and this woman's soft heart is going to get her killed too. I was just trying to toughen up that horse so he would not hurt anyone." Jake stepped closer to Morrison. Eleanor had never seen Jake look so angry. 3 weeks had passed since Morrison was fired from the ranch. Thunder had quickly returned to his calm, trusting behavior once the nightly torment stopped. Eleanor had successfully gotten a saddle on him, and now she was preparing for the biggest test of all, riding him for the first time. Eleanor stood at Thunder's pen holding a bridle in her hands. Her heart was beating fast with excitement and nervousness. Getting Thunder to accept a bit in his mouth would be the final step before she could ride him. "Well, Thunder, this is it," Eleanor said as she entered the pen. "Today we find out if all our work together has been worth it." Thunder came to her immediately, as he always did. Eleanor had brought extra apples today because she knew this would be difficult for him. Eleanor spent an hour just letting Thunder see and smell the bridle. The bit was made of soft iron and had been warmed in the sun so it would not be cold. In Thunder's mouth. "I know you do not want this in your mouth, boy, but if we are going to ride together, you need to learn to accept it." Eleanor held the bit near Thunder's lips. Thunder pulled his head back and shook his mane. "Easy, Thunder. Easy." Eleanor tried again, this time putting a little honey on the bit to make it taste better. Thunder sniffed the honey and let the bit touch his lips. After many tries, Thunder finally opened his mouth and let Eleanor slip the bit inside. Eleanor quickly but gently pulled the bridle over his ears and buckled it under his chin. Thunder chewed on the bit and shook his head, but he did not try to take the bridle off. "Good boy. You are wearing a bridle. Now you look like a real riding horse." Eleanor led Thunder around the pen for a few minutes to let him get used to the feeling of the bit in his mouth. He was not happy about it, but he trusted Eleanor enough to accept it. Then came the moment Eleanor had been working toward for almost 3 months. She led Thunder to the fence where she could climb up and get on his back. "Thunder, I am going to get on your back now. I know this will feel strange, but I need you to trust me." Eleanor climbed onto the fence rail and slowly swung her leg over Thunder's back. For a moment, nothing happened. Thunder stood perfectly still with Eleanor sitting on him. Eleanor could hardly believe it was real. Then Thunder took one careful step forward, then another. "You are doing it, Thunder. You are letting me ride you." Eleanor guided Thunder around the pen using the reins. He responded to every touch, every gentle pull. It was like he had been born to carry her. From outside the pen, Eleanor heard clapping. She looked up and saw Jake, Tom, Mrs. Chen, and all the ranch hands standing at the fence watching them. "I cannot believe my eyes," Tom said. That horse is as gentle as a lamb." Jake was smiling, the biggest smile Eleanor had ever seen on his face. "Eleanor, you did it. You actually did it." Eleanor rode Thunder to the fence where everyone was standing. "He is amazing. I feel like we could ride to the moon together." "Can you bring him out of the pen?" Jake asked. "I want to see how he does in the open." Eleanor felt a little nervous about this, but she trusted Thunder completely now. "What do you think, boy? Ready to show everyone what we can do?" Thunder's ears pointed forward with interest. Eleanor could tell he was curious about the world outside his pen. Eleanor rode Thunder to the gate and Tom opened it for them. Thunder walked calmly out of the pen and into the ranch yard. The other horses in the pasture looked up with interest. When they saw Thunder, he nickered a greeting to them but stayed calm and focused on Eleanor. "Where do you want to go?" Jake asked. Eleanor thought for a moment. "I think Thunder would like to see his old home in the mountains." "Are you sure that is safe? What if he decides he wants to stay in the wild?" Eleanor patted Thunder's neck. "He already chose to stay with me once. I trust him." Eleanor guided Thunder toward the trail that led up into the hills. The horse moved smoothly and confidently, like he was happy to be going somewhere new. As they rode higher into the mountains, Eleanor could feel Thunder getting excited. These were the hills where he had been born and had lived free for the first years of his life. When they reached a high meadow with a beautiful view of the valley below, Eleanor stopped Thunder and let him graze. "This is where you used to live. Is not it, boy?" Thunder lifted his head and looked out over the mountains. Eleanor could see memories in his eyes, memories of running free with his herd, of no fences or pens or people trying to hurt him. Eleanor slid down from Thunder's back and sat in the grass. Thunder could have run away if he wanted to. There was nothing stopping him. But Thunder did not run. Instead, he lowered his head and began grazing peacefully near Eleanor. "You know what, Thunder? I think you are happy with your new life. I think you like having someone who loves you and takes care of you." Thunder lifted his head and looked at Eleanor. Then he walked over and gently pushed her shoulder with his nose, the same gesture he had made when he chose to stay with her instead of going with the wild horses. Eleanor and Thunder spent an hour in the mountain meadow. Then Eleanor climbed back on Thunder's back and they rode home to the ranch. When they arrived back at the ranch yard, Jake was waiting for them with a big smile on his face. "How did it go?" "Perfect. Thunder is the best horse I have ever ridden." Eleanor slid down from Thunder's back and started to remove his bridle and saddle. But Jake stopped her. "Leave the saddle on him for now. There is something I want to ask you." Eleanor looked at Jake curiously. "What?" Jake seemed nervous, like he had something important to say but did not know how to say it. "Eleanor, these past few months watching you work with Thunder have taught me a lot about horses, but they have taught me even more about people." "What do you mean?" "I mean you have shown me that being gentle does not mean being weak. You have shown me that patience and kindness can accomplish things that force and anger never could." Eleanor could see that Jake was struggling to find the right words. "What I am trying to say is, Samuel was right about horses. And I think he would have been right about you too." "Jake, what are you saying?" Jake took a deep breath. "I am saying that I have fallen in love with you, Eleanor, and I am asking if you would consider marrying me." Eleanor felt like the world had stopped, spinning. She had not expected this at all. "Jake, I know this is sudden, and I know you came here to marry Samuel, not me. But these months of working together have shown me that we make a good team." Eleanor thought about everything that had happened since she arrived at the ranch. She had come here as a desperate woman with nowhere else to go. Now she was a confident horse trainer with her own horse and a bright future. And Jake had changed too. He was no longer the bitter, angry man who had met her at the stagecoach. He had learned to see the value in gentleness and patience. "Jake, what about the ranch? What about your life here?" "The ranch needs a woman's touch. It needs someone who understands that strength and kindness can work together. It needs you." Eleanor looked at Thunder, who was standing nearby listening to every word. The horse seemed to approve of this conversation. What would happen to Thunder? Jake smiled. Thunder would stay right here with us. He could help train other horses. You could start a program teaching gentle training methods to other ranchers. Eleanor felt excited by this idea. She had always dreamed of teaching others what her grandfather had taught her. Jake, you should know that if I marry you, it will be because I choose to, not because I have nowhere else to go. I would not want it any other way. Eleanor thought about her choices. She could take Thunder and leave the ranch to start a new life somewhere else. She had proven she could train horses, so she could probably find work anywhere, or she could stay here with Jake and help him build something beautiful together. Eleanor walked over to Thunder and scratched behind his ears. What do you think, boy? Should we stay here and make this our home? Thunder nickered softly and pushed his nose against Eleanor's pocket, looking for treats. Eleanor laughed. I think that means yes. She turned back to Jake. I will marry you, Jake Garrett, but only if you promise to keep learning about gentle ways with horses. Jake's face broke into the biggest smile Eleanor had ever seen. I promise. And I promise to keep learning about gentle ways with people too. 6 months later, Eleanor and Jake were married in a small ceremony at the ranch. Thunder wore ribbons in his mane and stood quietly while Eleanor, in her wedding dress, climbed onto his back for a short ride after the ceremony. Eleanor had started a horse training school at the ranch. Ranchers came from all over Montana to learn her gentle methods. Word had spread about the woman who had trained the untrainable mustang, and everyone wanted to know her secrets. Thunder became the star of the school. Visitors were amazed to see the once wild horse giving gentle rides to children and allowing strangers to pet him. But Thunder's favorite time was still the early morning hours when Eleanor would come to his pen with her flute and they would spend quiet time together, just the two of them. One morning, as Eleanor played her flute for Thunder, she noticed he seemed more alert than usual. His ears kept turning toward the mountains. What is it, boy? Thunder whinnied loudly toward the hills. Eleanor listened carefully and heard an answering call from far away. Your old friends are calling to you again, are not they? Thunder looked at Eleanor, then toward the mountains, then back at Eleanor. But this time he did not seem torn or conflicted.